Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan for another Inside the Birds. And as we sit here today, that NFL draft, it's right around the corner. It's just a few weeks away, less than 3, Adam. And you get pro days going on, you got visitations going on. I mean, we are now in the heart of the pre-draft cycle. And these last 2 weeks, there'll be a lot of information, a lot more visits. Pro days will be wrapping up soon, and then before you know it, you, me, perhaps Greg Cosell we'll be doing our thing, and it'll be NFL draft time. It's amazing how April
Crazy.
just flies that way, right?
Yeah, Yep. 3 weeks from tonight. Today's April 4th. 3 weeks from tonight, it will be the first round of the draft. It's crazy. In fact, pro days are almost all done. We've got right now private workouts are happening. Those workouts, which we'll talk more about as we get closer to the draft, they cannot be done at the team's complex. They have to be done somewhere else. They're usually done around a team's pro day. Although sometimes what will happen is when a club sometimes feels like they're zeroing in on a player and they need more information, they might send out the GM might go, they might bring the position coach, coordinator, or as we saw in the Caravan in 2016, the owner, the general manager, the quarterback's coach, the OC, there were like 7 or 8 people, Tom Donahoe on one of the quarterback caravan to see Goff and Wentz in 2016. That was pretty serious.
Definitely. That was man, that was crazy. So I'd like to think here on Inside the Birds, we've got the draft covered from almost every angle. We're in the heart of our NFL draft positional prospect coverage with Greg Cosell, the intel with Greg Cosell. It's been out the last few weeks. We've done wide receivers. We just did offensive line this week. I believe we're going to get into edge rushers in the next one. So we are in the heart of that. And Greg has been doing excellent breakdowns. I was sort of fascinated by the offensive line breakdowns just because we were getting to, 8, 9, 10, 11 guys. And Greg was as fond of those guys as he was as the first 3. It's such a great, deep offensive line draft.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say there's no in between with Greg. I don't want to say he hates players, but everybody knows who's got to know Greg. All the thousands of you, and even the ones who didn't like Greg in the beginning now love Greg. It's kind of comical because he's almost like a scout. Because in scouting, you cannot be in the middle. It's got to be thumbs up or thumbs down. There's no thumbs in the middle. This is not like a game show. So Greg was so effusive with his praise with these linemen. I was like, holy bleep! And I saw some of the comments that we got on YouTube. People were like, wow, the Eagles don't have to draft a lineman in round 1. Maybe they get one in the third a good start,
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. So with Greg and us on Inside the Birds podcast, really getting into all these college prospects, especially the guys you're going to see on day 1, day 2. We've got that covered. And then Andrew DeCecco has been doing a great job on InsideTheBirds.com and on his new series. Well, it's not new. He did it last year. He's doing again, called Draft Dreams, where he talks to a lot of small school prospects. And the first one went up, I believe, Wednesday. There's going to be another one coming up on Friday. But on Wednesday, we put on the platform his interview with Sean Stevens. He is a cornerback who went to Ferris State. Now you think, why do I care about a cornerback who went to Ferris State? Well, the guy ran a sub 4.340.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, the Eagles, as you'll learn in the interview, and I'm not going to give up too much away, the Eagles know who this guy is, and they've paid a lot of attention to him. And they helped recommend him to some of the all-star exhibitions. I believe he went to the CGI showcase game. So the Eagles have been keeping an eye on him. His uncle is Joey Porter, so his cousin is Joey Porter Jr.
Wow.
And again, I'm going to repeat this. He ran a sub 4.340, and in his college career, he's had 6 interceptions or more twice. So this is a playmaking, speedy corner who was recruited by Penn State, Oklahoma, Purdue, and some other top Division I programs. But for reasons you'll find out in the interview, he wound up going to Ferris State his last 2 years and really performing well there. So this is what Andrew does. He does a great job of getting these small school or small college prospects that you really should know about, specifically ones that he finds out the Eagles are interested in, and does great interviews. So keep up with that on our platform. Andrew DeCecco doing a great job. And of course, a shout out to him, as you'll be hearing him on Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock up until the draft on 97.5 The Fanatic, our partners in this venture, and he'll be on the Fanatic doing NFL draft talk. So just really proud of
Cool.
Andrew's
Yeah.
contributions. Proud of Inside the Birds. He's with us, and everything he does is an extension of Inside the Birds. So really happy about that. And then last but not least, you and I had a great one of the most fun interviews we've ever done, I think, for our Patreon members with his name is Samir Suleiman. A lot of people may not know that name, but he was the vice president of football administration for the Carolina Panthers, but he's been in the NFL for over 2 decades, been with 4 different teams, and he is a salary cap manager slash contract negotiator. And he's probably, as I joked at him in the interview, we've had coaches, we've had GMs, we've had presidents, we've had coordinators, offensive, defensive, we've had different players. This was like the final checklist, right? To complete. We had a salary cap expert, and Samir did not disappoint. Had some amazing stories, including uh, including one of his stranger experiences in the NFL, meeting the Prince of Monaco and that prince's surrounding cast, which was
I
that story alone is worth the interview.
when you asked him what's one story that's so different from anything else, and he had to think, but he goes, all right, I got one, and we wouldn't know where he was going to go, and when he started telling it, because I forgot he worked with the Rams. He was actually there with Kurt Warner and Mark Bulger, and that's kind of where he started. But he's been with the Steelers, Jaguars, which I didn't know about. Told a great story about the Jaguars, but during his time there. But when he went into the stories, and it's interesting to hear his football background, because he's one of the very few guys who actually played football at the collegiate level
Right.
that had been contract negotiators, and he also played with John D. Filippo at James Madison, and Samir played receiver, and we went into how he took his football knowledge as a receiver to negotiating contracts and having that sensitivity is really interesting for over 40 minutes. Oh, by the way, just a couple more notes on Patreon before we get started. We've posted now, I think, 10 contracts of the Eagles that went inside and help you understand them over the last week. We had our live stream last night, which was action packed. We always go an hour, folks. It just has to, we can't leave, it's like an hour. Everybody's like loaded and ready for bear. So that was great. We have Discord. And you absolutely should go to patreon.com/InsideTheBirds to sign up, because it's very, very low membership fee, and we're very interactive with it, you and I, and we're also in Discord, part of your membership, and you get these chalk talks, as you talked about, which, by the way, we're going to give you another one. Joe Banner and I talked last week, so Joe's going to come on.
Nice.
He just got back from a trip, and Joe always reminds me, I never said that you should have a weakness at linebacker. He's just funny, because he gets credited for that. And he goes, it's just not fair, because he never said they had to have a weakness, but you can't pay everyone top dollar. There's certain positions you're going to pay lower, but he never said that it's acceptable to be weak. So I've always thought that was interesting. So that's what I have, like 10 things I want to go over with him. I want him to re-explain that the next time we talk to him.
Yeah, I like how you said he gets credited for that. More like he gets blamed and picked.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, blame such credit, but and he also gets, and this is absolutely the truth. He is the reason why NFL contract or drafted players must wait till 3 years. So Brock Purdy blamed Joe Banner. As you know, he was the one, as you talked about with Samir earlier this week, formerly of the Panthers, when you could extend drafted players after 2 years, not so much. Agents got sick and tired of it. And the management council and NFLPA and NFL agreed, let's move. You got to be in 3 years instead of 2 to negotiate your contract, renegotiate.
Yeah. And you wonder if that'll ever change, because now you're seeing players like Jalen Hurts after his second year going to, the playoffs at 9-8, right? And then Brock Purdy, of course, going to the Super Bowl. They have to rely on performance-based pay, which is not nearly as much as they could make if they were eligible for a contract extension. So again, the Samir Suleiman interview is on our Patreon. It's patreon.com/InsideTheBirds. And we want to give a big shout out to CJ as our newest member. All right. Inside the Birds, of course, is presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It is the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. Let's talk about an interesting move, significant move the Eagles made in the last 24 to 48 hours. They give an extension, Adam, to Reed Blankenship, their safety, for 1 year. So he signs a 1 year extension through 2025. This is not the first time, even in recent memory, that they've given an undrafted free agent an extension for an extra year. People may remember that TJ Edwards got one. Now they waited until the season to do it, midway through the third season, but they tacked on a year to TJ Edwards's contract. He was another rookie free agent to ensure that they would have him for another year. And lo and behold, Adam, they went to the Super Bowl with him as their linebacker because of it. But obviously, obviously the safety here, Reed Blankenship has played well when asked to. I mean, he's played well enough. He's completely overplayed what you expect from an undrafted rookie free agent. We can talk about whether he's truly a number 2 or number 3. He's a number 3 safety. He's had to be a number 2. But the bottom line is, I think, Adam, a smart idea to get one more year on him, especially with how thin they are at the position right now.
All right, let's go inside this decision. This is why they did it. So they look at the position, which is barren right now, and they know this player. They nailed this signing as an undrafted free agent. It's just rare that, and you're right. TJ Edwards was another great example of it. This guy should have been drafted. We know he's not the fastest guy. We said this 2 years ago when he was signed, and particularly after he had the really good first year. Eventually, the lack of foot speed is going to show up, and it did. But he's still a good player, as you said. We both agree, and so does Greg Cosell and other people we've talked to around the league, who would be better off as a third safety. But the extension, as we know the numbers, as we go inside that decision, the money is not prohibitive to where they couldn't draft a safety as early as the second round. It'll have nothing to do with it. Blankenship, they're individual decisions. If they like a safety in the second round, they'll draft a safety in the second round. There's not a safety you would draft in the first round of 22. There isn't. Cooper DeJean is a multi-positional player. He's not a pure safety or pure corner. He could play like 4 positions, really. But it's just to know that they're going to have him. It's high-end backup pay, low-end starter pay. It's been a great story. Excellent special teams player. By the way, very, very important part of the special teams units, which become more important now with the kickoff change. Boy, that's going to be fascinating. So, and with Brown's injuries, ACL injury, nobody has any idea how well he'll play when he plays this season.
Mm-hmm.
And Gardner Johnson's got a major injury history, so this is a smart move. You get him under team control. Very cost effective for another year. Once we get the numbers, we'll go over them, the final breakdown of the contract. But as we know it, it's not going to preclude them from doing anything. So it's a smart move. Get on it early. They know they got it right. He was on the final year of his rookie deal. Now they've extended it 1 year. He also, and this has nothing to do. This is out of the player performance pay system pool. He got added to this year, $923,000. Doesn't affect the cap. He was the second highest player to get that. John Simpson of the formerly now of the Ravens, who signed a deal with the Jets, he got $974,000. So that's good. That's a great job by the Eagles of signing and development. That's, by the way, that's part of their draft class of 2022. That's a good job there, and we'll see in year 3 if he could make some improvement. But boy, right now he would be starting. You know, as we look at that position, it's right now. It's Gardner Johnson who's definitely starting, and it's Reed Blankenship. Don't know about Brown. Tristan McCollum's on the roster. Could you find another safety? I don't see another one.
No, not yet. I know Mekhi Garner we talk about has that hybrid ability, but no, there's no pure safety other than those 2 guys on the roster at the moment. I'm glad you brought up the performance-based pay. We get some questions on that and why it's not counting against the cap. This started, I can't remember what year the NFL Players Association started doing this, but what it basically is money that the NFL Players Association, which is not the NFL, they work with the NFL, but they represent the players. It is money that they give to players who are either very low draft picks, like a Brock Purdy, right? Or an undrafted free agent like Reed, who really outperform what you normally would expect because they're not paid a lot of money. And so it's kind of a fund that the NFLPA creates so that they can try to give guys somewhat of a kick up, or I can't call it fair, because whatever Brock Purdy made in performance-based pay, it's not fair. I mean, he was a starting quarterback for a team
I know.
Super Bowl, but it's intended to at least give them something that they're missing by being on either a low round rookie contract or a undrafted rookie contract, yet being a starter for a team and playing a lot of snaps. So if that's why it's not against the salary cap because it's not the NFL giving these players money, it's the NFLPA. It's literally the players helping other players out, right, Adam?
It's a
Because
pool, yeah.
yeah,
It's
it's a
pool
pool of
money,
money from
yeah.
the players. Yeah.
It's called pool money. It's a fund, and it's interesting. It's based largely on playing time, and Blankenship obviously is an undrafted free agent. He was never expected to be anything but a back end player, and good for him out of MTSU to get the job done. So how about this one? He's told Pat last weekend that he's getting 923,000 added to this year's salary or money take home, and then he gets the extension. How oh boy, how did it like to be Reed Blankenship? It's like Christmas coming in April, and it's not April Fool's, by the way. Actually, real,
How
which is
about
kind of
that?
what he said because he thought I think his agent's Buddy Baker that he was putting him on, but no, it's true.
Yeah. So we'll get the contract details and we'll talk about it. But Adam, when a team does this, because let's think about this. Reed Blankenship was not going to be a free agent after next year. He was going to be a restricted free agent, not an unrestricted
Not
one. He would
right.
have been eligible for probably the lowest round tender. So you wonder when a team gives a 1 year extension instead of waiting and just giving the low round tender, are they basically giving that 1 year at what that low round tender they perceive to be, or is it a little more? We'll have to wait. I don't remember what TJ Edwards got in his extension, but you basically want to do it now so that you avoid that situation. Because by the way, the Eagles lost out. I mean, they could have retained Jack Stoll, but they didn't want to give Jack Stoll the low round tender because they felt that was more than he was worth. They probably expected to be able to retain him, but lo and behold, the Giants came in and scooped him up.
All right, TJ Edwards got a 1 year extension worth 2.15 million.
Which is probably more than what the low tender would have been, right?
Uh, Back then, I don't have it in front of me. The low tender was kind of high for Jack Stoll was actually over 3 million.
Oh, so maybe
So,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's why 2 months ago I said from what I heard, the early word was they were not going to tender Stoll, but they had interest in bringing him back, which they did. And they made an offer, but the Giants came in late and I think kind of stunned some people.
yeah,
So he's gone, but that's that. And yeah, this is a really good story for Reed. And boy, that safety position is barren, man. I would say this though. We've talked about this over the years. There have been 2 or 3 times where the Eagles had I don't want to say an agenda, but they had guys on their radar to draft, and just the board didn't work out where they're going to draft a safety. It might have been a third or fourth round over the years, as we were told, but it just didn't work out. It's not like they didn't want to address it, but sometimes things happen. But man, they've got some work to do. In today's NFL, man, you've got to have safeties who can cover. We know Gardner Johnson can do it. He's a good center fielder, but he's not a guy's been able to stay healthy. So they've got to supplement that position.
right. And last technicality thing that people might be confused about or wonder about is undrafted rookies sign 3 year deals, and they can be, as we just saw, extended after the second year, unlike a draft pick who, as you mentioned with the Joe Banner rule, cannot be signed to extension until after the completion of a third year. So the
Yep.
contract structure and the rules of extension are different for undrafted rookies compared to drafted rookies.
One thing you could actually, if you wanted to, it rarely happens. There would have to be an extenuating circumstance, like the guy would have to be like an all pro or something. But you can, as an undrafted free agent, you could extend the guy's contract. Excuse me, after 1 year if you wanted to. Doesn't really. I can't remember last time I
Right.
saw that, but you could. Yeah, because
Right.
undrafteds could be extended because they're not drafted. You could extend them at any time.
Are you also allowed to pay them this? I know the rules sometimes change, but you remember when the Cowboys signed La'el Collins after he
Yeah.
didn't get drafted because there was that whole legal issue around him, and then he got cleared.
Ooh.
I think when they signed him to a lot more money than you would ordinarily make as an undrafted free agent, if I
They
recall.
did. Yes, they gave him a pretty nice deal. Then they wound up extending it fairly early because once he
Right.
was cleared, they knew they could trust him. Yeah, that was a bizarre one. We don't need to get into that one. What happened?
No, that was obvious. Every year, man, there's something strange that
Yeah.
happens, right? But I think last year was pretty tame. I don't remember anything getting leaked or
I mean, you had the
crazy
Jalen
happening.
Carter, right? You had the Jalen Carter situation, obviously off the field, being sued and so
Right.
forth, and that situation. The Eagles did a ton of homework on him. Year one was fairly quiet for him. We'll see what year two brings
Hmm.
with his performance, and it's a young position. We'll get into that our last segment of the show today. is kind of where as we always do, we always look forward, try not to look back too much, but we try to see where things are at and what we hear and what's going to happen.
Mhm.
And this defensive tackle position is awfully young at the moment.
It definitely is. We will get into that a little bit. As we move on from safety here, we're going to talk about this edge rusher group. Interesting question I have for you that was asked to me. Before we do that, let's pause to hear a word from our great friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, let's take a look now, Adam, at the Eagles' edge rusher group in the post Hassan Reddick trade era here. No more Hassan Reddick, who had a man. Did you hear his press conference with the Jets?
Yeah, I mean,
There was some
I don't know what
enthusiasm. He's right about that, by the way. He's right when he says this Jets defense is going to be. I mean, if everybody stays healthy,
oh, they're
that should be a
incredible.
very, very good Jets
I
defense.
mean, they don't really have a weakness. It's one of the few defenses. Their issue is obviously to keep the quarterback healthy. Offensive line, they're going through three new guys and getting help at wide receiver. But as we go inside this edge rusher situation, as we look forward here, without Reddick, it's kind of like wow, because we've talked about this throughout the offseason. Is this team better than last year? Not as good, and so forth. I mean, they have some depth. The quality of depth can certainly be questioned. Bryce Huff is a guy that hasn't proven himself as an NFL player. He's got a ton of upside. This is the first time he'll be starting full time. Sweat regressed last season. They brought him back. He took a pay cut. His contract's up after the season. Nolan Smith didn't really contribute as a rookie. Right now, he'd be their third edge rusher. Zach Bond, looking at his contract when we got the details, boy, they guaranteed all the cash. Not a lot of money, $3.5 million. So they obviously think he could do some things that he did at Wisconsin, and BG doesn't play very much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He is the one veteran for leadership, and back end guys Acquire and Lewis, particularly Acquire, they like his upside and size. They gave him a decent guarantee. But when you look at this group here, is there anyone you go, okay, that guy you can count on?
Well, I mean, I'm not being facetious when I say this, Adam, but I do think when you have Brandon Graham as your number 4 on your totem pole of pass rushers compared to every other team's number 4, it's probably pretty good. I mean, you're right. He doesn't play as many snaps and as much as he used to, but even if he's playing 15, 16 snaps, he probably gives you really good production out of, say, who are the Cowboys got? I'm not saying that because they're Dallas, but who are they throwing out there after Parsons and Lawrence? Because they lost Dorrance Armstrong, who used to give them really good reps as a number 3, number 4 guy. So the Sam Williams would be their number 3. Like, I don't know who their number 4 pass rusher is. It could be somebody they draft this year. So from that point, from depth standpoint, I think that's pretty good and reliable. But to your point, that's a fraction of a game. That's 20% of the game. 10 to 15 snaps. The first 3, when you look at Huff, Sweat, and Nolan Smith, there's some question marks you would attach to each one of them.
Yeah, 2 years ago, he's phenomenal with the 11 sacks. I mean, he's just incredible in that role. Last year, he just dropped off, as I guess everyone did. He played fewer snaps. He was down in percentage of snaps by about 9%. Production was way down, as everyone else's was. So, yeah, as a fourth end who's not going to play a lot, a fourth edge rusher, whatever you want to call him in this defense, which is going to look different. It's going to, yes, it's the Fangio scheme because he's running it, but it's going to look different, obviously, than last year's debacle. It'll be coached better. But there's a lot of mystery here. There are a lot of questions here. Sweat, who regressed, we'll see if he could come back to where he once was a couple years ago. Huff is intriguing. Don't know. As we noted when they signed Zach Bond, they plan to play him inside and outside. He has not been a factor as a pass rusher since college. So there are a ton of questions here. Again, the quality of depth. It's not how many guys you have. It's about production, what to expect. I have no idea what to expect from this group, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think you know what, you used the word mystery, and I think that's a great way to describe a lot of things about our questions. For example, Brandon 2 years ago, like you said, had 11 sacks. This was on second year under Jonathan Gannon. He was playing in a great rotation. He was playing more snaps. Did Father Time just suddenly, bam, catch up with him last year and he wasn't as impactful in those snaps? Or was it misuse of personnel, which we could talk about from both
Mm,
coordinators
yeah.
at multiple positions, not just edge rusher? So I almost think that we got a clean slate here with Fangio, the actual Vic Fangio, and Brandon Graham. If Brandon Graham was just being misused and he still has got some juice, he could easily be the number 3 or 4 guy again. Well, I wouldn't say 3. Nolan Smith's going to be 3, right? In some
Mhm.
form or fashion. But
Yeah.
if Sweat continues to not look good, but Brandon Graham gives you more juice, you can see a decrease for Sweat, an increase for Brandon, who's always been good against the run, and gives you some juice off the edge. So I think mystery is a great word. If you wanted to tell me Father Time finally caught up with Brandon Graham last year, I'm not going to debate it or argue it because it's going to happen at some point. But if you wanted to convince me he's actually not lost that much, it's just that he was completely misused by
Yeah.
2 different defensive coordinators who just had a very poor usage of their personnel. I could agree with that too.
One thing that I've noticed, because I know you've mentioned at certain positions they've gotten more length, maybe an inside backer, but Huff is longer. Julian Acquara is 6'4 and a quarter. I know he's a back end player. And they gave him decent money for a guy who's a back end player in terms of guarantee, but uh, he's got length.
Mm-hmm.
They're in a couple of the inside backers have length. It's interesting, and again, we don't know if it's intentional. We're going to look into that because we want to find out what because Fangio has such respect in their building. We know Howie and Nick and Vic have become pretty friendly since they sort of developed this relationship a couple of years ago when he was in the building a lot when he wasn't officially working for the team. We had heard he stopped over it now every now and then because we know he's from Wilkes-Barre, that area. But bottom line is, there's a lot of mystery. There's some upside, no question about it. But that is why at 22, edge rusher's got to be not the only position. Obviously, corner's a problem. It's the biggest problem with defense. It's not even debatable. It is the number one issue with the football team's corner.
Yeah.
They can't line up today. We got it. They're not playing till September. They got to do something. They got to get younger. Oldest quarterback tandem in the NFL. They got a lot of work to do. But I'm very interested to see what Vic wants. We're going to look into that.
So Mike Gill asked me in a Football at 4 segment on 97.3 ESPN, our partners in South Jersey. He said he was asking me about the Reddick trade and if I thought that Howie felt forced into dealing him and getting a pick that is 2 years down the road and a 3 that became a 2, that he didn't want to do it, but was sort of forced into it by the labor dispute and all that. And I don't think Howie was forced into that. I think he
Not
knew
at
the
all.
situation was that Hassan Reddick wanted a contract. But he still had leverage. It was Howie's decision after that to sign Bryce Huff, to guarantee the money for Josh Sweat, to want to play Nolan Smith, who he drafted a year ago more. I just believe there's cause and effect, and the cause is I know I'm moving on from Hassan Reddick, so here's how I'm now rebuilding my front around it. I mean, to me, it was more that not that he didn't want to do it, he just knew he was going to do it, and this is his way of rebuilding the defense without Hassan Reddick.
Well, let's put it this way. It definitely was not like the one situation where they I hate to say forced. They knew that Wentz wanted out. They were not going to be able to talk him out of it.
Right.
And that had to get done. Yeah, if you want to call that forced, go right ahead. I wouldn't argue with it. This one was not forced. They just think it was in their best interest. We could all disagree. They clearly are not as good a team without him. But again, we haven't even had the draft yet. And anything could potentially happen in the trade market if they don't get that done in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Again, it's as we've talked about, we've learned the hard way with Howie. Just when you think they're done doing something, they do something right before the season started 2 years ago when they got Gardner Johnson. That was a heck of a trade that they got from New Orleans. So
Yep,
we got a long way to go here.
Yeah, I'm with you. It was all part of the big picture plan here. And again, as we say for many episodes now, the offseason is certainly far from being over. All right, we'll continue to talk about the defense, but first, whether your resolution is to save money, eat better, or just stress less, HelloFresh, it's here to help you do all three. So say hello to your most delicious year yet with fresh ingredients and chef crafted recipes at a price you'll love, delivered right to your door. So you've resolved to actually sit down and eat dinner around the table. What do you do about those nights when your schedule is packed? That's when you turn to HelloFresh's lineup of quick and easy meals. It includes their 15-minute recipes. They're designed to help minimize mealtime stress. Who doesn't love minimized mealtime stress? Every time we eat a HelloFresh meal, whether it's quick and easy or one of the others, we're just blown away by the freshness, taste, and the overall quality. So many different options to choose from. If you like chicken, if you like meat, if you like shrimp, if you are a vegetarian, there's something for you. And now they've got their best deal yet. If you go to HelloFresh.com/Eagles free and use that code Eagles free, you get free breakfast for life. That's one breakfast item per box while you have an active subscription. Free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/Eagles free using the code Eagles free. That's all one word, lowercase, EAGLESFREE. Act now for America's #1 meal kit. All right, as we mentioned, the NFL draft 3 weeks away. Let's take a look at what we expect the Eagles will be looking at, where they need help. When you think of we know that the Eagles draft best available player at positions they value, whether they need it or not, right? They had plenty of pass rushers last year. They still drafted Nolan Smith. But when you look at an area where you say, man, the Eagles could really use a young building block player here, what jumps out to you most?
Well, as we go inside their pre-draft needs here on defense, that on your question, corner.
How's it? Well, safety is a good one too, but yeah, corner's
got to be the number one. It's not only is it the number one need as we update it, as we kind of we recalculate everything, because they're pretty much, in terms of street free agents, it doesn't mean they won't add one or two by training camp. I'm sure they will on defense. But as far as the heavy lifting, that's, in terms of guys on the street, that pretty much is done. So to answer your question, and it's a good setup, that's why corner is such a need, because you don't want to lead the NFL in the oldest cornerback tandem. That's not what you want in a time when they're clearly trying to get younger. That had something to do with Reddick being traded, amongst their whatever reasons they decided to do it. That was one of them. Corner would be one. Edge, yes, because after this season, Sweaty's up, Zach Baughn's up, Graham's up, Acquire's up, Lewis is up. I mean, they have very little left. Nolan Smith has barely played, and of course, the new guy Huff. That's it. So yeah, but do they have to get an edge rusher, a young guy? Not quite right now, but again, the draft it's always about the future, next 3 to 4 years. You hope a lot longer than that. I would say, to rank them, corner for the young guys, safeties like in my top 3. I hate to say inside linebacker or off the ball.
I think you're
because
right,
we know it's the one position on both sides of the football. They love to go. I'd say the GM loves to go year to year. Nobody does year to year better than the Eagles. Well, I shouldn't say better. Sorry. No one goes more, not better.
Right.
They like to go more. They like to go, keep doing it year after year. It would be stunning if they shocked the world and they drafted 2 off the ball linebackers in the 3rd or 4th round.
Oh my God.
well, 3rd round, by the way, the way it was explained to me is this. We haven't talked about this in a while, but we need to refresh this list. 3rd round picks are always expected to compete for a starting job by the end of the rookie contract. Not so much 4th rounders. 3rd rounders, that's the last round of guys who should be competing for a starting job.
Right. No, I agree with you. In most cases. For linebackers, is that what you said? Or just in general?
Oh, no, just overall. 3rd round picks. I'm just saying overall.
Competing for a starting job, right.
Yeah,
now, there are some
by the end of the rookie contract. By the end of the
you can get away with having a really good rotational D tackle or DN be in that mix. He can be successful, like Milton Williams, right? If he winds up being rotational, he can be fine. And you'd still call it a
quasi starter. Honestly, he's a quasi starter.
Yeah. Absolutely. But my exercise, because I would agree with you, if you separate a team's tendencies and positional value from just what does a team need from a building block standpoint, you would put cornerback, safety, and off-ball linebacker as the Eagles' top 3 needs for a building block talent. But we know that if you're handicapping the Eagles' 1st round pick, it's probably going to either be corner, D end for this draft, or offensive line. right?
100%.
Yeah.
There's literally I think Eddie Garcia pointed this out in our Patreon, and I as he said, I go, that sounds right. And I looked it up. That's been every single first round pick, edge and offensive line. If you look, or wide receiver, by the way, it's receiver, edge, or offensive lineman. That's pretty much it. There's been no, well, I'm sorry, lineman. You have to say defensive lineman because of Jordan Davis and
Right.
Carter.
Right.
He won't do a safety.
Right.
He hasn't done a corner when it's been his choice, when he's been the
Right.
general manager. They have not done running back.
Right.
They haven't done tight end. Most teams don't, but they haven't done that. It's just, and by the way, pretty much works for them, particularly when they get it right. Boy, they get it right. When they get it right, it's like, wow. When they
Right.
get it wrong, it's like, boom, wow.
Yeah.
So
this is what interests me about them, though. When we've listened to Howie and Joe Banner talk for a long time, and one of the things that they pride themselves on is A, having a process, which they do, just talked about that, but B, they pride themselves on studying the league trends and what successful franchises do. Now they're not going to say they do everything that those teams do, but they study them. When I look at two teams that typically draft well over the years, the Ravens and the Steelers, those are teams that are not afraid to take a variety of positions in the first round. In fact, the Ravens, if you go back 15 years, last 15, I mean, they've taken almost every single position, including tight end, Adam, right? I think Hayden Hurst was a first round draft pick for them at one point. So
it was.
Yep. Kyle Hamilton, safety, Patrick Queen, linebacker. I can't, the corner from Alabama, Humphrey, right? Marlon Humphrey, corner.
Ronnie Stanley.
Quarterback, right? Offense. I think they've even taken a center. Yeah, Tyler Linderbaum in the first. So the Ravens don't view it as positional value, and we have they'll take literally the best player,
highest graded player on the board. No,
right,
great point. Right. And that's when Howie gets it wrong, and Rager in 2020 would be a good example. He overdrafted for speed.
Mm-hmm.
Rager had mostly second round grades. It's kind of like when teams reach for quarterbacks. It's like when Mitch, you and I were there, and we almost fainted when the Bears traded up for Mitch Trubisky, because we had no idea in 2017. Neither did anyone there. John Fox found out like the day of or the day before they were going to trade up for Trubisky. But it's when you misprice or misvalue the quarterback position. Trubisky and other guys who were drafted in the first, like Mark Sanchez, should have been a second round pick based on skill set, but you needed that player, so you overdrafted. Mm-hmm. If you just go by your board, Justin Jefferson would have been that guy. Unfortunately, they overdrafted. It was Howie's call, and when Howie's gotten it right, and he said this after that Athletic article came out. I remember him saying to the media, least we can do is follow what the guys do. They put all this work in,
right?
And some years it looks great, some years it doesn't. That's the one area he's arguably the NFL's best general manager, but he could be so much better if he tightens up the process, gets the board right, and they stick by that process. It's when he deviates, he misses. That's just that. For as long as we've done the show, when we've reviewed this, boy, that seems to be the when he doesn't get it right, he deviates from that.
Yeah. So I'm excited about. I guess I'm excited from a historical standpoint about this draft for the Eagles, because I think as we sit here today, if not the first round, then sometime on between day 1 and day 2 and day 3, you got to think they're going to draft a cornerback and maybe even a safety at some point, right?
Oh, I mean, if they don't trade for a corner,
right,
or something like that, if they can't get that guy, I always say this: if we know, the public, okay, everybody listening who loves who follows the Eagles closely, if they know they have to do something significant cornerback, and we know the general manager knows more than we do, so he's got to do something big at a cornerback.
Right. I just think it would be fascinating, because and not to be too rude, but it's true. They have been maybe the worst franchise in the NFL by about 30 miles in drafting cornerbacks over the last 10 to 15 years, actually longer, since Lito and Sheldon in 2002. And we don't have to go through the names because we do enjoy going through them, but there have been many, and none of them have worked out. So if you want to give Jalen Mills, it kind of worked out. They won a Super Bowl with him, but it's not like he was, anything other than an average cornerback. So they really haven't drafted an above average cornerback.
Honestly, though, Well, Maddox is a Nichols corner. I mean, that counts. That they got
Who?
that right.
You're right. I should say an
I mean,
outside.
say outside, but outside corners on your point. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, though, if you looked at it, his first year technically as a GM was 2010, but he didn't have control. Andy did.
Right.
But and
Oh yeah, this
we
thing goes
met
back way before Howie. This goes to like
right. But
days.
going back, we'll just go back. Well, this will take 2 minutes. This is fun though. We love doing this. Okay, you've mentioned this guy a bunch of times over the years. He never could stay healthy.
All right,
Gerard
wait,
Lindley,
hold on. I love where we're going with this. So if we're gonna do this,
gotta do it.
let's just take a quick break to hear from our friends at
All right,
Sky Motor
do it.
Cars.
I love it.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, if you happen to stop in at Sky Motor Cars, make sure you tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. You'll get a great deal. That's Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA. I'm chuckling because I'm like, nah, we're not going to do this. And I'm like,
You got to do it. You
Cars
got my
going to do this.
see, and I remember Joe Banner telling us because you asked him this question a couple years ago on our show. What was with them drafting all these late 4th through 7th linebackers and corners? And what did he call them? Dart throws? What did he say? What was the phrase?
Yeah, well, the discussion was about the wide receivers at the time that they were doing this on, like the John Hightowers and the and the Quez Watkinses, right? And they were just bringing in guys, and they were doing it in a corner too. If you remember, they had traded for the kid from the Carey Vincent or something, and Tate. They were just signing all these corners and wide receivers. And Joe said, if you're not doing a good job drafting and developing, you at least throw darts. It's like throwing darts. One of them might hit, right? And they're sort of doing that right now at corner with all the Rickses and Jobs and Ringos and all that. Trying to rely on these. So
it doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
So okay, here we go. We're going to start at 2010 again. Howie didn't have control, but we're just going to give you that since he had input, obviously. Gerard Lindley didn't work. He had an ankle problem coming out of Kentucky. We've talked about him over the years. You brought him up many times. 2011, not a corner. 2012, Brandon Boykin, he was a nickel, got off to a good start, couldn't stay healthy, very short Eagles career, but okay, it didn't work.
Yeah.
Jordan Poyer. I got to ask Joe
safety.
I know what it didn't Cleveland immediately. In fact, Joe was the president in 2013. He left in 2012, became the Browns president. We have to ask him what happened there. It didn't work out with him at corner. Jordan Poyer wasn't here very long. After that, no, not 2014. Ja'Cory Shepard never made it. Randall Evans never made it. Man, Shevitz. Blake Countess. In fact, Blake Countess moved to safety, played for the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
C.D. Jones, unfortunately, had the torn Achilles right before the draft. Russell Douglas made it, but he did way better with the Packers. He was bad here. Eagles cut his restricted free agent tender.
By the way, you're being very kind by starting this at 2012. Wait, no, 2000. When did you start this?
10, because that's when
because you're just doing the Howie Road. I mean, because this has really been an organizational failure since, like I said, since Andy Reid and Tom Heckert were picking guys in 2005. So we're going like the Curtis Marsh.
It's really, but see, here's the thing though. Okay, Sidney Brown they missed. Excuse me,
Jones.
Sidney Jones they missed badly. Obviously, second round pick didn't make it. But since 2010, they've barely addressed it. We'd have to look at, what are the top 10 positions they've drafted? Corner's got to be way down there that they've actually addressed. It doesn't matter what round, regardless of round. Safety is another one. Your guy, Jack Iguano, that was a terrible miss in 2008. He was the 4th rounder. He had all the knee problems and later other problems. If you look at safety, Quentin Dempsey was drafted to replace B. Doc. I mean, that he did well, by the way, after he left the Eagles.
Yeah.
You just look at it. Some bad luck. Nate Allen had the torn patella tendon. You and I were at that game at the new Meadowlands, MetLife Stadium on the turf there. Mm-hmm. But they just haven't addressed corner. I don't know why.
They've tried to piecemeal it a little bit. Not as much lately, but in the past with sort of veterans or guys who play. I mean, everybody knows
Yeah.
about Namdi and DRC, right? But then there are also names that people forget, like Nolan Carroll or Dimitri Patterson, or there was another name that hit me. Oh, Ellis Hobbs.
Yeah.
Who else did they? And they've done it at safety too. They went through the whole. I mean, we can go through all the name OJ Atagways and Jared Pages of the world.
Yeah.
They were doing it. They were just trying to find like veterans, and we all know that cornerback and safety are guys who you see it around the league. They seem to do well in certain schemes and not well in other. Kerry Williams was really good with the Ravens. Then he came to the Eagles, not so much. Bradley Fletcher. They just kept trying to bring in guys from other schemes who had
Harry
maybe had
Williams.
some success elsewhere, and it just wasn't working here. They never drafted and developed.
That's that as we close this out, we'll get big into the safety and corner group as we get closer to the draft, kind of what we're hearing for second or third round targets for them. And we're trying to zero in what Vic likes, Vic Fangio. We have to talk to coaches who work with him. We had talked to one last year or 2 years ago who, because we're trying to figure out this Gannon scheme, and this guy said, we don't run the scheme like Vic does. We don't see it the way Vic does. We see it because it's his scheme, but there's things that Vic want, like Vic does not want to blitz. He wants 4-man pressure. He wants pressure up front, and he doesn't want to sacrifice coverage. You know,
Right.
he makes
He's
it lead
a
with
fire zone guy. Yeah.
right. So he just doesn't want to sacrifice coverage. But we need to find out exactly what he wants in size and talent and whatever. You know, that's something we're going to look into as we go forward here.
Absolutely. All right. So wrapping that up, yeah, cornerback, they need to, in the draft. Safety, we talked about inside linebacker, edge, and D tackle. Still could use a veteran one.
One veteran, yeah.
One veteran.
Yeah. So I'd sum it up like this: D line, one veteran. Depth, the depth quality is poor. No one proven. They have just a bunch of names, guys who have not proven anything.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of upside. They need one more edge, particularly for the future would be nice. Off the ball linebacker, of course, that they actually have depth this year. The quality might actually be better. Cross the fingers, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Burks, with Bond, who play multi positions. Van Sumeren, who did show a little bit, obviously, when he started against the Giants. Corner, boy, it would really be nice for them if they added 2 outside corners. Ricks is a good story, but he's not a future starter. They don't see him that way. He's just quality. He's a quality backup.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy that you can get away with for 3 or 4 weeks, maybe as a starter if you needed to.
What do you think they view Ringo as? Because he's a fourth.
I was going to get to him. Yeah,
okay,
he's fourth outside corner. That's it. I mean, he's that's it. He did some decent things, but there was some stiffness with him. He's just not a guy who could start at this level. He's not shown that ability yet. No one I talked to, no one you talked to, because we kind of exchanged notes, kind of know what he is. Rick's definitely outplayed being an undrafted free agent. Great story, man. Really good kid. Based on this, what they asked him to do, he accepted everything he was thrown at him. Great story of accepting his role. And look, being an undrafted free agent, you don't have you got to do something they say the more you can do, and he was the ultimate more you can do. And loved Andrew DeCecco's story. He did that diary with him. Was it weekly with him last season?
It was the weekly rookie diary. It was very
awesome. Yeah, it was a good job by Andrew, and thank you, Eli, for doing that. And then safety, okay. They really need one more guy, and it needs to be a young guy. Yeah, could it be a veteran? Sure, but it would be nice. It would be nice because you don't know about Sidney Brown. You don't know about him yet. Coming back to the ACL, Blankenship we've talked about. Brad, CJ Gardner-Johnson. You know that they're locked in this year. Some minor guarantee money in year 2. They absolutely could get out of the contract after this season and not own very much. You just would like it where they could slow things down a little bit and just build this thing with young guys. It sounds like Howie wants to do that based on what he said at the combine, what we've heard behind the scenes. So it would be nice if they start really building this thing through the draft.
All right. That's great stuff right there. You'll hear from us again Monday morning on the next Inside the Birds pod. In the meantime, look out for the Intel with Greg Cosell and Draft Dreams with Andrew DeCecco. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. As always, we thank you so much for flying with us inside the Birds. Be sure to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation.